G'day guys, and welcome to our second free-to-air webinar. My name's Tristan Tucker. My lovely assistant Connie Lunstra is with us. So welcome everyone. Welcome Connie. Of course, our topic for this evening is preparing your horse for the competitions. 4 steps to reduce stress at the competitions. I'll be giving an insight into what I'm doing with my own horses and how I prepare my horses the best I can to have a good experience at the shows. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tristan Tucker. I'm originally a dressage rider and horseman from Melbourne, Australia. I've now been in Europe for, I can't remember how long, more than 10 years. I have now a training stable here in the Netherlands. I'm running together with Connie my own online training program, TRT Method. I'm doing lots of clinics and demonstrations all over the world, including competing Grand Prix together with my partner at international competitions. I'm also the face of Mr. Brett Kidding, who you may have seen doing a wonderful demonstration of Grand Prix around the place. So I have many faces, but I also hold a little bit of knowledge that I like to share with you all. So I'm glad you're all here and you now know who I am. So we'll move through some slides, which Connie will be able to control. So everybody will see a little bit of what we're talking about. These are some of the...
we do have a technical issue. We had that one also with the live Q&A. So it's probably in the system. It says the video is unavailable. I'm not sure if people can hear us, but if you click on YouTube, you will be able to attend the session. So please click on the YouTube icon and then you will be able to view it. I'll also post it in the chat. But yeah, that was all.
Okay, so hopefully everyone can hear us loud and clear. And if they've missed the first bit, Connie, they can also tune in again at some stage on YouTube, I guess.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So this is a page from our online training, which you're all welcome to join. This is a number of testimonials from international riders from all over the place. We are now in more than 55 different countries in the online training with TRT Method, and we have quite some members around the place doing amazing things, learning from our online training. What we'll be covering tonight, the 3 mistakes we make at competitions, including myself over the years, which is how I've learned to be able to do what I do now in preparing my horses. 4 steps that I take to reduce stress and to make sure that you have a successful outing, whether it be your first competition or your first big competition, or a horse that you've had previous problems at competition. This is the 4 steps. And then you have a secret opportunity to work with me. So congratulations for those who've tuned into this. You get a nice opportunity to work with me when and Connie will explain that later on. And then, of course, we have a Q&A session where you get to ask all the important things that you've been wanting to ask. But first, Connie has some questions from you guys.
Yes, definitely. So the first question is, what's your chosen discipline? And I'm not really sure if people are going to see this, but let's try it, because most people are now watching on YouTube. But maybe if they switch back to this screen, they can see the poll. Yeah, I do see that people are clicking on the poll. So apparently it's working. It's always fingers crossed with if you're using a website and all the technical stuff. So I see that most people here are, the chosen discipline is dressage, and 14% is other. So I'm curious to hear what that is. Yeah, so basically it's dressage.
Okay, so nice to get some information about who is tuning in, so we can give you the best information possible.
Yes, definitely. I also see a question on the chat. What is the link for YouTube? I believe if you just click on the video itself, it will go to YouTube. But perhaps the other people who are attending can tell me that. Linda says, exploring Western dressage, not on your list. All right, let's go to the second question. And that's for, have you ridden competitions with your horse, or do you ride competitions with your horse? So it's yes on a regular basis, yes, but not often, no, but I'm planning on riding competitions, no, and I'm not going to. Let's see, the results are coming in. And just a reminder again, for people who are just tuning in, please click on the YouTube icon on the video that will lead you to YouTube. Then you can also see what's going on. Apparently you have an issue with there not being video. And Brittany is, she's streaming with Chromecast on the TV, and she has to chat on her phone. That's really good.
Some technical handy people there.
Oh yeah, definitely. So the results, 25% says yes on a regular basis, 30% yes, but not often, 39% no, but I'm planning on riding competitions, and 6% no, I'm not going to. And there are, of course, the numbers are changing a bit. All right. And then the last one. Does your horse have at times too much tension when training or when riding competitions? So around, yes, well, actually 93% says yes, 92. Yeah, so most people says around 6 or 8% says no.
Good. So I'll upload all those statistics, Connie, of our viewers tonight, and then I can adjust my information to suit everybody as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's then move on to the 3 mistakes we make at competitions.
So starting off, number 1. So this is something that I not only, of course, deal with myself through being really wanting to be really focused and wanting to be really driven in having a good result at the competitions. I also see it in my students, of course. I'm constantly trying to remind the students that it's not just about getting a good score and not just about riding the exercises in the ring, but it's very much about understanding how your horse is at every moment. Also, before you leave for the show, when you arrive at the show, walking to the warming up, getting in the warming up, all the time, we want to make sure that we're also focusing on how our horses are. I also see it a lot when I go to international shows. You can notice the riders that are only thinking about the technical aspect of riding. They're only thinking about what is it that I have to do, you know, in my exercises in the ring. You know, you might arrive at the competition, you get the horse off, you quickly go and put him in the stable, or you quickly tack him up, and you're getting so focused about how you're meant to ride, how you're going to warm up, and what you have to do in the ring, and where you have to make a half hold, and how you have to have him in the frame, and maybe what points you didn't get last time and how you're going to get them this time. But of course, what's really important is that we're not only focusing on the riding part of the test, but we're also very aware of how our horse is in all the parts leading up to the test and also in the test, so that you are really focused on where your horse's attention is. How is he when he arrives? How is he when you walk him to the stable? How is he when you walk him at an international to the trot up? How is he when you walk simply from the stable to the warm-up arena? You know, having our attention on how our horse is, who is our horse, and what is he thinking, really will determine how your performance will be in the ring. And if we are keeping our focus only on the technical aspect and we start to abandon the connection with our horses, of course, also feel it, that your focus is somewhere else. They sometimes then get more insecure. You have less of a connection with the horse, you start to feel less or be aware of less things that are going on with your horse. And then, of course, it makes it more difficult for a good performance in the ring. So I very much try to take note all the time, have good awareness of how my horse is. How does he walk to the warming up? Is he relaxed? Is there something I can do on the way to the warming up or from the warming up to the ring that can let him feel confident, that can give him the confidence to feel like he's in control of himself, and that you can bring the best possible result for when you get in the ring. So really thinking not only on riding the test, but really how your horse is every step of the way as well. Number two, we see this quite often when we're in a situation when things are going bad. So for instance, you're in the warming up, the horse comes in, he's a little bit tense and he's got a lot of energy, and you're just thinking, okay, let's just get going. Let's just get going and start trotting and get him moving. And you start to add pressure to the situation because the horse is not in control of himself. And therefore you're feeling maybe you're also not 100% control of the horse. And then we, of course, are adding things to try to resolve that situation. And quite often, of course, the adding of pressure is giving the horse less time to think, which leads us into a higher and higher state of anxiety, higher state of energy. By the time we get in the ring, we're either both exhausted or the tension is so high that the horse is going to surely make mistakes when we get in the ring. So, and it's also a situation where, you know, you can be either in the ring or in the warming up or on the way to the warming up or on the way to the ring in between the warming up. You may arrive at the competition and you get the horse off the trailer or the truck and he's dancing around, and then we start trying to control the horse, add more pressure, start telling him off, start telling him where to be, maybe get two people to hold him while we're trying to throw the saddle on. The horse is dancing around. If it's maybe his first time at the show or he's had not the right sequence of process to learn how he should be when he's there. When we're in the warming up, you know, we might have a situation where he starts to spook at a certain part in the door, and then we start to get a little bit anxiety and stress that maybe he's going to pull that also in the ring, or this is now not the time you should be spooking. And then we add pressure to the situation, try to maybe force him through the corner, you know, push and push to get things to be right. So adding pressure to ourselves by having the anxiety of it not going well is not a good thing. And of course, adding the pressure to our horses when things are not going well is also not going to help the situation. And also thinking about that also all the way through the test. You know, when things are not going right, it's sometimes at that moment that you need to take a little bit of time, even though sometimes we feel we don't have the time in the ring. Then we are sometimes going on and adding pressure, which ends up being an explosion. So this leads us into the third slide and the third point, which is focusing on the short-term goals instead of long-term goals. So the thing of not adding pressure in a situation when things are going wrong is sometimes enabling us to give the horse a good experience in that moment, remembering that every moment we're with the horse, we are training him, we are teaching him. And so if we get into the ring and the horse is starting to maybe get insecure, you could be creating more of a problem for all the next times that you're in the ring by just trying to put pressure on to get him through that corner, or not let him spook, or not let him get behind your leg, or, you know, not let him take a moment to think. We think, oh, he has to be forward at this point, and that's how I have to have him to get the points. And we add pressure. We're thinking of that short-term goal, that result in the moment in that test. And sometimes that can be of a great negative effect for the long-term goal. So I always try to think when I'm in the moment in the ring, okay, they're animals, we are human. It's not always possible for everything to go perfect. Everything is a work in progress. We can always improve. We can always get better. No matter where we are on the progress scale, we're always trying to get forward. Doesn't matter if you think you're at the top. Even the top riders are also trying to get better. You can have the same mindset whether you're at your first competition or you're at your 7th Olympic Games. there's always those moments where you think, I have to now, you know, really give pressure to make this moment work. And a lot of the time that can then lead to a pattern where the horse gets more insecure. So really thinking about what can I do in that moment to give my horse the confidence. Maybe I give away some points in that moment, in this test at that time, but for the long term, my horse is having a good experience and I have a much better chance of him going into the ring more confidently the next time. So, Connie, these are our three main points, and then we have, of course, the 4 steps to reduce stress at competitions, which I'm using. These are the patterns that I go through with my horses, whether it be the very first competition or a horse that's experienced or a horse that naturally has some anxiety, and I know they have some weaknesses, maybe to sound, or maybe when they're traveling on the trailer, they already have anxiety. So it's dependent on each individual horse. We try to set it up for each individual horse, but here everybody gets to see a little bit the process of what I'm doing with my own horses.
Yeah, so we have 4 videos, and I believe, Tristan, that even though these videos are all about riding competitions, you can basically use this for hacking out or just going to any environment, right?
So this is basically the preparation for an exam. So the exam is, of course, any new experience, new place, new environment you intend to take your horse. Something that's asking a bigger question of them than what they would at home. So naturally that can be going to the competition, going to your trainer's place for a lesson, going somewhere for a clinic, going somewhere to have a hack out with your friends. Anywhere where you're taking your horse to a new place and you're trying to prepare them for the exam, they're going to be asked a lot of different questions when you arrive at the new place. And this is the preparation to get them in the right mindset and the right feeling of the good management of themselves when you arrive. It doesn't matter where you intend to go.
All right, well, let's start then with the first video.
So this is one of the first things I'm doing to prepare my horses for the show. Saphira has just been platted, and some horses, when they've been platted and made ready, they kind of have a sense that they're going to the show. So it's important for me then to be able to get them back into a relaxed mindset. So just before I put them on the trailer and I'm ready to go, I bring them just into the arena and I go through the first pattern, and you see here Saphira is anticipating a little bit. She's walking a little bit quick. Although she's fairly level and horizontal in the body, she's quite high for her, on the borderline of becoming a little bit tense. If I was to walk out to the trailer now, we could have a heightened sense of energy in her body, in which we don't want before we load to the trailer. So you see here, I'm just waiting through the pattern, letting the pattern do the work to try to get her as relaxed as possible before I come to the trailer. So we know before we enter, before we would begin, the horse is in a really relaxed position. So in the last preparations before going on the trailer, I tend to like them to stand by themselves, that I don't put them in the cross ties again. So it's not necessary, but it's just something I like to do in the process, that the horse takes responsibility for staying in this relaxed position, keeping the relaxed state as we make the last preparations for going on to the trailer. So of course the trailer loading is very important. You want to have prepared this before, of course, with your trailer loading training, and making sure that you have plenty of time for the loading process, not that you're in a hurry and that creates a panic or a level of stress that is going to affect, of course, the journey and then the horse's mental state when you arrive. So remember, key point, leave plenty of time that you can fix up any confusion or any stress in plenty of time before you leave. So there you get your first glimpse of how I'm preparing for the competition. You can see in the beginning I'm in my competition gear, and Safira, some of you may recognize Safira from some of my videos on social media. And of course, Safira is also demonstrating some of the first modules on our online training course, a TRT method. So Safira's there ready, as you see, she's platted up, and quite often when she gets the plats in and she's ready, she already knows the plats are in. Okay, I'm obviously going somewhere. She knows the competition is there ready. So I'm going then through my first pattern. This is the first module on the online training. This is my yoga. This is the yoga for horses. This is how I teach horses to have good awareness of their own body and have a good management system over themselves. They're really learning how to control the body, how to get into a relaxed state. This is really my secret weapon that goes all the way through my program. This is also the exercises, which you'll see later, that I use in different areas at different moments to be able to give the horses that feeling that they are in control of themselves. So in this first clip, you see Safira's in the competition mode. She's got the plats in. She knows what's going on. I want to make sure that her not thinking about the competition is not getting her into a stress state. So I'm just going into the indoor. We're just about ready to put the travel boots on and go. I just take it through the pattern. As you can see, the more she goes through those specific exercises that she recognizes, these are tools that are now in her toolbox. This is the thing that's bringing her into a relaxed, controlled, and managed state. So she's already thinking, how should I breathe? How do I need to be in the body? How am I going to present myself? How am I turning up on the day? Am I turning up already thinking when the plat's in that something's going on? Or am I turning up as a really good student that has good management over my body, really relaxed and in control? You see there in the second clip, when my good groom Jorg and I are starting to put the travel boots on, she's standing by herself. So she's taking responsibility. We haven't put her in the cross ties and made her feel like she's being held in one position. I really let her stand with the rope on the ground. She feels like she can hold herself. No one is holding her or making her stand anywhere. She's then in a relaxed state while we are putting the travel boots on. And this is setting also a pattern then when we arrive that she's relaxed, standing still while we take the boots off. Some of you may already recognize situations of turning up and trying to get to the back legs to whip a boot off, and the horse is spinning around and someone's trying to hold it. So this is to avoid these kind of situations. The other important thing, of course, is how your horse is presenting itself to the trailer. As we explain on the TRT method in our bonus videos about trailer loading, it's very much about giving yourself the time. So making sure that your time management skills are under control. You're not thinking, oh, I've got to get to the show and quick, get the horse on. You're already in a heightened state. You're already having a high level of energy. The horse feels that the beginning of just getting in the trailer is setting a state of panic. So really making sure you have the time. You see how I let Safira approach. I'm also as well taking note, what we talked about in the first point, taking note of how she is, how she's thinking. If she was going to rush on there and I felt her energy level get up, I would then control the steps, just like we do in the trailer loading, that you control the steps, that she is coming into the trailer also in the right state. When the horse is coming into the trailer in the right state, they already have a better chance of traveling well, which is of course covered in your good trailer loading and teaching the horses about travel and about the meaning of a destination. And then you have a much better chance of when you arrive that your horse is still in the right state, still managing themselves, and you're not letting this process from the morning, from getting the horse out of the stable at home, maybe platting up, putting the boots on, getting the horse in the trailer, you're not starting this process in letting that be a build-up of tension, so that you're starting in a very good place and you're starting with a horse that has good self-management, control, relaxed, and so that when you arrive, you have a much better chance of your horse arriving in the state that you want, that makes the horse feel comfortable and that makes you feel comfortable. So should we go to the next video, Connie?
Yes, sounds like a good plan.
So we've arrived at the show. You can see there's a lot going on. Of course, a lot of other horses on trailers calling out and stamping and making noise. We're close to the road here, so you're getting still a lot of trucks and a lot of traffic noise. So I just take my time that I'm coming into the trailer, untying the horse, making sure she's relaxed. If the horse is not standing totally relaxed, I try to get them into a position of relaxation before I start to take them off, so that they learn to find a position of rest and that they're not in a hurry to get off, and that I don't take them off in a hurry because they're in panic. I try to get them as relaxed as possible before I'm taking them off, so that we're again trying to train the right response, that when they arrive somewhere that they can stand relaxed. When I'm taking off the bar behind them, again, that they wait a little bit, and this is all in preparation. You've done this in the trailer loading and the lessons about how to load and how to take one step at a time on and off the trailer. So this still applies when you get to the show. If something happens where the horse is running off, hopefully you get there early enough in plenty of time then to retrain these things. You see Sophia, and she hasn't had the straightest exit of the trailer, but I still like to back them in a straight line so that they're not turning off the ramp, that they're distracted, and of course straight away they are leading me off the trailer. So backing the horse up in as straight a line as possible. And then you see here, I'm in the middle of the car park, but yet I still have room to go through the pattern a little bit, and you'll see the first reaction from Sophia, she of course wants to look around. I don't punish her and stop her from doing that, but I then just quietly start to get her body into a relaxed state through the pattern. Of course she wants to go a lot forward here, so I'm just then gently moving the front legs until she steps behind and across. And I take my time. I'm not in a hurry that I need to put a lot of pressure or be in a hurry for her to listen and to quickly go through the pattern. I just take my time and try to get her energy level down to the same energy level as myself. And I just feel through the horse what they need. You know, some horses might be running backwards and they need to turn the hind legs to get a little bit balanced. She's a little bit forwards. So I'm taking my time now to get her to back up. She's dropping the head. You see now the head is a little bit lower. She's not kind of got her ears up looking over the trucks to the warm-up. She gets into a state where she's a little bit relaxed. You see in that time now my perfect assistant York is getting the saddle and things ready. She's now dropping the head. She's now licking the lips and in a more relaxed state. So from now, when we've arrived, I can then start to think about taking the gear off. So before we start to take the boots and things off, I like to get this relaxed mindset. The horse is standing still by itself, and she's ready to proceed with getting ready for riding. So here we come to the getting on. Saddle and bridle on. Again, I go just a little bit through the pattern, a little pilot check to make sure with the saddle and bridle we haven't had any added tension. And in a place where everything is new and strange, we continue to do things that are familiar to the horse. We build a pattern that is familiar to them, that gives them relaxation. The same with the getting on, same as we do at home. We all know the drawing to the step. So my first two steps here are a little bit tense. So again, when I get on, a little bit turning the hind leg, she turns a little bit loose. I feel she's relaxed, and then I can begin to walk to the rear. So making sure all the time you're double checking, keeping control of the feet, keeping the horse relaxed and soft in the body. So there you see us arriving at the competition. I always like this little clip because in the very beginning, you just see out of the corner of the screen some people that are trying to manage a horse, and it's sort of spinning around. It's exactly what we were talking about just before this clip of what sometimes happens. And then Saphira comes off the trailer and she kind of looks across and says, oh, there's a horse not managing itself. I always get a little personal giggle out of how my horses are also viewing that environment. But as you see, when we arrive, I'm trying to be very aware also of my own body language. So what's happening is when I arrive, I'm thinking, what is the state that I want my horse to be in? So I'm again not thinking yet of how I'm warming up. I'm not thinking, oh, which rings it going to be in. I'm not thinking about the diagonal that I have to get right. I'm not thinking about my first hold. I'm really in the moment. We've arrived, and I'm thinking that we've arrived. I'm not thinking ahead and getting the horse off the trailer. I'm setting the energy level that I want from my horse in my own body. So you see in the first part, I enter the trailer, and as I explained in the video, if I go into the trailer and my horse is not relaxed, then I'm not in a hurry to get the horse off. I try to keep this relaxed state. I walk in the trailer just like we're at home, rub her on the neck a little bit, which also lets me feel how she is, and she gets to feel how I am, that I'm not in a hurry to get her off because I have to think about getting saddled and all this kind of thing. I'm very aware about my energy, and so I get to read also her energy, and that she starts to feel from me that I'm not in any sort of hurry. As I also explained in the video, you see how Saphira is coming off the trailer. She doesn't make the best straight line, which we cover also in the bonus video in the TRT method on the online training. But I also try to have it, of course, that I'm coming off the ramp in a way where the horse is still managing themselves. I don't want the horses to come off and get halfway down the ramp and put the head up and be turning around, and already their energy is up because their head is physically and mentally in the clouds, and they start looking at horses that are 5-10 meters away. I want the horse to be present and to be with me in the moment of what's happening right there and then, coming off the trailer. And you see the next steps, I start to go through my magic pattern, this yoga, which, because Saphira knows the movements, you see very quickly she comes off and she seems relatively in control of herself. But she still, when I start to move the feet and start to ask her to do these little exercises, I feel a little bit tension in her body. So it tells me also that this is necessary, because if you have a slight bit of tension and you start adding things, like doing things, taking boots off, putting saddles on, they can start out okay, but if that tension is not released, then you have a build-up of tension. And so when the tension starts building up, and your mind is busy, you get in the warm-up, and it's then you realize that that tension has been there all the time, and it's slowly building up, and now you have to deal with it in the saddle. So as you see, when I go through this first pattern, the first exercises, she gets, because she knows the pattern, she has something in a new environment where nothing's familiar. She's doing something that's very familiar, and that gives her a good feeling in her body. So she immediately comes to this relaxed state. And so when she's come to this relaxed state, I then know she's ready to stand relaxed. We can start to take the boots off, begin to saddle. You see there, I also use the draw to the trailer to get on. Sometimes I use a step, sometimes I use somebody else's step, or somebody else, the back of someone else's truck. But I'm also teaching the horse to draw, so she's presenting me with the saddle. And this is also something that we have on the online training. It's really important for my horses that they don't feel held, that I'm not forcing myself on the horse, but the horse is really mentally in their mind presenting me with the saddle. I'm asking for something. They know when they bring the saddle, this is a position of rest. She is telling me, I'm ready for you to get on. So also this is a process of thinking for her, where she's not doing things in a hurry, and that she's not thinking, she's staying relaxed. You've already asked for something, saddle and bridle on. You've started with a level of communication where she has to think, she has to offer something, you get to reward them. And so this part of the getting on for me is also really important. you see then when I get on, she is, because she's a really hypersensitive mare, I get on and then she's a little bit tight in the back. So this is a really good example of, we could easily just have walked to the warm-up and started warming up. But then, of course, what would happen is she's got the back up a little bit. She's a little bit tight. She walks. She may feel like she relaxes a little bit. But then there's the added pressure of, now there's a lot of horses in the arena. Now there's the energy in the environment has gone up. So that little bit of tightness in her gets added to by the new space with the new level of energy. And so, of course, what happens then is you get something more to deal with. So before I go to the warming up, you see again, I go through the pattern. It may be only 1 or 2 turns. If your horse really knows the patterns from the online training, sometimes you can look at the hind leg and the horse thinks, oh, I know what I should be doing. I know how I should manage myself to make myself feel better in this particular situation. So when I get on, and of course in the beginning people look at you weird. They think, what is he doing? He's getting it off the trailer and he's doing this little dance with his horse. But of course in the end, my horse is the one that's really comfortable, in control of themselves. The whole process becomes a lot easier. I'm relaxed, the horse is relaxed, and then the people that are holding on to the horse and the horse is spinning around in the car park are the ones that really look weird. So going through that, giving yourself the time, you start to walk to the warm-up, you've arrived at the competition in a good state, you've given yourself the best opportunity to go to the next step, which is going into the warming up. And then you see in a moment from Connie's video what I do for the step in the riding. So now we come to the warm-up. So my first few steps, again, coming into a new space, whether this is indoors or outdoors. Again, it's a new surrounding where everything is new and strange. So I try to give the horses, again, a feeling of something familiar. So the first steps that the horse takes is something that relaxes them. It gets you in control, and of course it gets the horse in control. So rather than sort of getting to the warm-up and they have a lot of excess energy and you think, get trotting right away to try to get a bit the energy off, I try to then not start in this sort of adrenaline mode. I try to get the horses again to find the control. It's something that they're familiar with, of course. This is a tool that they've brought with them at home. So in this first few minutes, I just go through to make sure I have the same controls. You see Sophia is a little bit sticky in the front legs here. Once I have the freedom there, I let her relax again. So it's not that we have to do 20 minutes of it, but just that we have a little bit control of all the feet. There's no stickiness. She starts to get relaxed. And you feel when you drop the rein that the horse will choose to stand still. And when you ask them forward, they're stretching forward and down, nice and relaxed. Now you might get a few strange looks, of course, in the warm-up in the beginning, but after the 1 minute or so of doing your groundwork exercises, when your horse is starting the warming up in a very relaxed frame, then you start to look nice enough to everybody else, including yourself. So now you get to see me in the warming up. There's another giggling point in this video. The man that's standing in the warm-up there, he's at moments pointing like he's also knowing my groundwork pattern. I'm sure he's not, but he's just in there very motivated, instructing his student. As you see, I get to the warming up. There's a lot of people riding around, a lot of energy, some horses going at great speed. Everybody's sort of in the zone, doing their own thing, going around. And what I want to make sure is that then when the horses are arriving, showing up in the arena, that they don't get caught up then in that energy, and they start following the energy of the environment, the energy of the other horses, the energy of the place. I want to make sure that the horse is still listening to their own self-management, having a good self-management system, and that they are in tune with me. They're in tune with their body, which is what the pattern is set up to do, They get to really feel, have good awareness of their body. We are creating this body awareness and having release points. So if any tension is in the body, it's releasing this tension. So I'm going into the middle of that space, and I'm making sure that Sophia is in good contact with me. She's having these release points. She's getting relaxed herself. So she's feeling she's in control of her own body. I'm also feeling how the response is to my leg, that I have control of each individual part of her body through that pattern. And we're again starting at 0. So this becomes really interesting. I'm also training a lot with a heart rate monitor from HylaFit. And this becomes really interesting when you are working your horses at home and you know the basic heart rate of your horse in the daily work. And when you start to use these patterns in new environments and in competitions, I've developed it in a way, and you also see it in the online training on TRT method, that I've developed it in a way that you can get the same feeling from your horses in new places as you do at home, and that your horses get the same feeling from themselves. They don't have a heart rate that's heightened and they're having anxiety and starting to get excited or get naughty or get scared, that they're able to have this self-management of themselves, and that you get to see it in the heart rate. So you get to know that the horse is actually feeling the same in himself and the same confidence, connection, and awareness of you when they're at a new place as when they are at home. So this is the pattern. This is how I'm setting my horses up. And Sophia is an incredibly sensitive electric horse. She is, if a fly goes past and is farting, she hears it. So if you are at home and you plat her up and you quickly put her on the trailer, if you do that in a hurry and you drive 5 minutes down the road, she's piaffing in the trailer, getting herself worked up. If you whiz her off the trailer and throw the saddle on and get on, she's then already in a state of tension that she just wants to explode. You then get in the warming up, and then all of a sudden she can't control herself and I can't control her either. So this is really a process that if we don't think about all these stages right up until the ride, I can guarantee myself that I might as well go home before I go in the ring, because I've set myself up actually for failure, because I haven't put in the steps to be able to give her success. I haven't given her the information that she needs for the exam. So when she arrives at the competition, she's going to fail in all these little tests of pressure and knowing how to manage herself, because I haven't given her the information. And I don't have the tools myself to be able to, in each moment, try to get the best out of every situation. So, Connie, I don't know if we have any quick questions on some of those videos.
Well, yes, we have some questions on YouTube. So a question from Bromlea. She says, please explain why you want the 4 feet to cross behind in your pattern instead of in front.
So I'm impressed. We've got some keen watchers here. I always explain in my clinics that there's a lot of people looking, but you have to learn to be able to see. So this is someone that's seeing. What's important about this is, of course, the hind legs. I'm wanting to get control of my horse's feet forwards and sideways with my feet. So my right leg is controlling the inside hind leg forwards and sideways. My rein in my pattern is very separate, and it's controlling the front legs backwards and sideways. For a horse that wants to really run backwards and has a natural tendency of pointing south, if you imagine a horse's balance being like a compass, if you have a horse that is high in energy, if you move the rein and he steps forward and points north, if you back him up and relax, he goes forward. If you move in the saddle, he goes forward. Then, of course, the horse's natural balance, his compass is pointing north. So when through the pattern, I'm teaching the horses that are pointing north to be able to change their posture and have good management of themselves by stepping across. When I direct the inside front leg to step, say the right front leg to step to the right, I want the next leg not to step forward, but I want it to step behind and move across. And what's happening in that step when they step behind and across with the front legs is you're changing that physical state. This is the secret of the release points of this exercise, of my first patterns, is that you're setting the balance that the horse's posture is no longer pointing north and wanting to go forward, but you're changing the posture, you're changing the physiology, that the horse is becoming in balance. They're no longer pointing north. When you relax, they go forward. When you turn right, they go forward. Now, this is the opposite for a horse that's wanting to go backwards. When I move the front legs to the side and the horse is backing away all the time, their posture is drawing instead of going up and forward, I then ask them to move across with the inside front and a forward step with the outside front. So this is an adjustment to the horse's posture, which enables him to change his physiology. If every time he takes a step, he's making this in the posture, of course, however a horse walks is who he is. So if every time he moves, his posture is going up, the energy level goes up and up and up. So to make this adjustment, I'm teaching the horses to walk behind and across, which enables them to change the physiology. It gets them into a relaxed state and gets the compass in balance. So any influences from the environment, the energy around them, is not enhancing where the compass is maybe falsely pointing. But a really good question, Connie.
Yes. I think it's really interesting to go to the fourth video. I remember when I saw this for the first time, I was really impressed and inspired. And I think a lot of people watching will be too. Most of the times we think of a competition as like the most important thing in the world. And most of us are just riding at like small competitions, myself included. And when I see you at an international competition and you just think of the horse and put this interest like first, I think that's really inspiring. So shall we take a look at the video?
Although I had quite a good feeling in the warming up in parts with Wally, and he felt pretty good in most of the exercises. I did my groundwork patterns in the beginning before getting on. I didn't actually feel confident to get on before my groundwork patterns, so thank God I had them with me. And yeah, he's sort of really affected by all the other horses also being a little bit excited in such an environment, and with it being bitterly cold, it takes him a little while for his muscles to sort of let go and become relaxed, and then of course he's really affected by his the physical feeling he has in his body. But in the warming up, it felt like I had really a horse that was with me, and he really had the feeling in the warming up that he could do all the exercises with quite a lot of confidence. And then our first center line felt quite good. He was sort of drawing towards the judge, no problem, and the first halt I felt was really square. Coming towards the judge, he was also really fine, good through the corner, good on my outside rein. And then I went to go, and there wasn't really much go. And I think 3 years ago, while he was also here as a 6-year-old, and we had a small incident where the person closing the gate actually dropped the bar, and I had a feeling at that moment that he was looking to see if that person was there. He was using his extremely good memory, which was not ideal at that moment, but he was really sucking back and not so confident, and I didn't feel the need then to really put the pressure on him and force him to go, where that may have got me less of an interruption. But then for me, I would have felt that he, at this moment when he stops here, you can see in the first diagonal, that he then would have lost more confidence if he felt that I was going to force him into that corner every time. I think that would have been an issue more and more through the test, and I actually felt that he got more and more relaxed as he went through the test. So for my feeling, that was a better experience for him, and he felt more in control of himself the further he went along, rather than I have to put really pressure on to make him go to that first corner where he was a little bit nervous, and then throughout the test he feels more and more forced throughout the exercises. So yes, this is a prime example, actually, Connie, of our third point, and that's the not thinking of the short-term goal, but thinking of the long-term goal. And actually, if I think back, I probably could have prevented this. And of course, this horse also, this is Jules Weibach. He is the first son of Weigold, the horse from Isabel Werth. So he's a horse with a lot of talent, but he came to me, of course, as a horse that was really sensitive and quite spooky, and was throwing off quite a number of very professional, capable riders. We luckily have a very good contract now between us, Wally and I. And of course, he's prepared, and he knows in his body the posture in which he needs to take to approach things. This is something we also do in the training to prepare him for the show. But of course, there's also always moments that creep in, no matter how much you prepare, that really demand you to be thinking in the right way in that moment. And when I say I probably could have prevented this, it was not so much in the training before, but it was in the moment in which he had the trauma the last time he was in that ring, which was actually, he's there as a Prince George horse, and he was there a few years before in the 6-year-old, a young horse class. It was also an international competition. And we had come in the ring and turned, and then the gatekeeper had not closed the gate after my halt. They were holding the gate in the air, and then as I came on the diagonal, they were closing it. And actually, as he came through the corner, he had a little bit of a look, and then they closed the gate, and then he went on. And at that moment, I didn't reassure him that he was actually doing the right thing. I actually just put the leg on after he went forward to continue the extended trot in the 6-year-old class. So what actually happened was, he got a little bit afraid. He then went on because the pressure went away. They closed the gate and the girls stepped back. And then I put the leg on. So he wasn't rewarded then for continuing to go forward. He was actually, just by me asking him to continue in the extended trot, I actually gave more pressure at the moment where he actually did the right thing. So this was quite a few years later, and I didn't think of it at the time. Going up the center line, he halts really nice, departure's nice, he turns right, goes. He was already a little bit back from the corner, and I thought, oh, that's not like him. And then immediately I thought, oh my God, the last time I was in this ring, I remembered the moment, and I immediately thought, he is looking for the girls that are holding the gate up. Now, at that moment, I was thinking straight away, okay, I can really put the leg on here and say, no, you're going to keep going. And Wally, as honest as he is, he probably would have kept going, and maybe I would have saved the extended trot. I mean, if you walk in the extended trot, you're not getting much over a 2. I could have saved it and maybe got a 6.5 and a 7. But what would have happened is the short-term goal of very short, meaning that one exercise may have been saved from it too. But what happened was, if I had have pushed him, for the rest of the test, we would have held the tension, and every exercise would have been a little bit difficult, because what would have happened is the switch in, while his mind would have been that he was now being made to do something. He would have been feeling like I am controlling him, instead of him feeling that he is in control of himself. And that's what I want my horses to think and believe and trust in all the time when they're in the ring, that they have a good self-management system and they are in control of themselves. And you know, of course, when a horse gets nervous and you push him, it's like the old thing of the spider climbing on the wall, and someone goes behind you and pushes you towards that. You push back. You get more nervous because someone is making you go faster than you're confident with. Now, the fact that he started to lean back and he didn't lose the line, he kept the line. He just slowed down and needed time to look and process. So the fact that I let him walk and I reassured him, I didn't reassure him that I was telling him that the backing off was correct. I was reassuring him that he kept the line. So he was now thinking, oh, I know the line. So the very next time I needed to come on that line in the changes, he was already knowing the line. He got through the corner by himself. He took responsibility and took himself through the corner. He didn't feel pressured or pushed through the corner. And so for the rest of the test, he was really relaxed. And so from that moment on, I was able to have a nice rest of the test. And of course, I didn't make the same mistake as the first time. And the very next time, the very next day, I never had a problem. He turned, he came on the diagonal. He actually took off and took me across the diagonal. So it's, again, very much about being in the moment and thinking it's not always the most important thing to try to save every point. But in that moment, it's sometimes better to give the horse a good feeling, let him feel that he's in control of the situation, and that you give him confidence. The most important thing is, for me, is that my horses have a good experience in the ring, and they have the feeling of a good experience and grow in confidence, so that at the end of the day, when I'm able to also do all the exercises much better, my horse is also confident enough and he improves, so that at the end of the day, my end game is where it should be.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's see.
Slides are going all over the place.
Slides are going all over the place. Some people are having some buffering issues. And I read the tip that you can lower the quality or pause the live video for a second, and then it will continue. All right. That was just my interruption. So please continue, Tristan.
So the opportunity to work with me. What is the opportunity, Connie?
The opportunity. So we get actually a lot of questions about the online program, and normally you can get the online program for €299 or buy the 3 modules separately. But we have, for everybody attending the webinar, a special payment plan. So that's $24.95, and that's a monthly payment plan. And after 12 months, the payment will stop automatically, but you will keep lifetime access. So you get access to all the videos and also all the bonus videos. I got a question earlier about trailer loading. That's also included. And not so long ago, I was trying to count all the videos, and it is so much content. I believe it was almost 25 hours of video content. And that's because we have a lot of case studies and a lot of bonus videos about specific situations. That's from clipping your horse, doing the PF in hand, trailer loading, when your horse is afraid of other horses, if you need help with getting on your horse, horse preparation anxiety.
Foal handling.
Foal handling, yes. A lot of people want to know, when can I start with this training? Well, you always say, like the day after they're born, or when they're old enough to stand, they're old enough to learn.
It's old enough to stand, it's old enough to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other very good thing about the online training is a lot of my students that have ridden with me as riders, they like to be able to go back, of course, and see where it begins, the foundation of being able to teach your horses to understand everything they need to know for when you get to the riding. And of course, the people that are familiar with the groundwork exercises but need to know specific exercises for their individual horses, they're very happy, of course, with the first groundwork patterns. But then it's very clear as you go through the modules of how to progress and make this connection between the groundwork and the riding, because of course in a lot of times we can be very good at groundwork, or the horses are really good in the groundwork, but when we get to the riding we still have the problems. The other thing I really find, some of my students that ride with me and pay for a lesson for me to stand there, if they saw this deal, Connie, they might stop coming for lessons and go for the online training. But
well, maybe you have some extra time then.
But of course, the other important thing, and what I found really rewarding with the online training, is a lot of the members and students there are getting great value in being able to refer back to the videos, that they're really taking responsibility for sitting down, watching, processing it in your own individual way, picking out the bits that are really useful for you, going away, practicing with your horse, and then thinking, oh, I'm not sure of this bit, or where do I go next? And being able to refer back to a video is really powerful, because of course you're reminded of which of the bits you're missing, and you're able to refresh yourself of what is the next step, and you have something to refer back to. Often when I give a lesson, of course we're only human, so if we're really good, we're processing maybe 90% of the instruction, and of course when we leave, and we go home and train, maybe day 2 we're remembering half, and day 5 it starts to go a little bit more pear-shaped, and you can't quite remember what the things were that were instructed to you at the time. But if you have the ability to refer back, it's of course I'm there 24 hours a day on the online training. And of course, what the other big bonus is, Connie, is our live Q&As that we have with our members.
Definitely.
So that gives people really one-on-one contact with me, in which you can send in your work, you can send videos of how you're doing, how you're progressing. I can critique you. This you're doing really good, but you need this and this and this for the next step. And so people also are able to, if they get stuck, they're able to get some real eyes-on help, which we can do through the live Q&As. And then, of course, as a member, you stay up to date with our training days and our training clinics and our TRT live events, where you also have opportunities to come for training weeks with your horse, or you get to come to the live events and see horses in real life, and you get to make all the connections and all the things you are doing and seeing on the online training yourself, you get to see in real life on other people's horses. And everybody gets together and is having a great time, and everyone progresses and learns with their horses. So hopefully we get to see a few of you.
Yes, and also, first of all, welcome to Daisy. I just saw she just joined and took advantage of the special payment plan. What's also really interesting is we started online training end of 2015, and of course we've added a lot of videos along the way, and also when we get special requests for certain problems, we shoot bonus videos for that. But we've done quite some live Q&As in the past, and we record all of them, and all the questions that have been asked are in you can all see those questions. So if you have a very specific question, you can always look if that question has been asked before, and that's also helping a lot of people. And another thing that we often get is we all think that we have very unique problems, and people want to know, will this also help my horse? I believe I saw a question from that also on the chat. Also about an older horse, is it then different? Maybe you can also say something about that.
I always answer those questions, Connie, with if it has 4 legs. Basically, the online training has been developed by myself through working literally thousands of horses from all different countries and all different disciplines and purposes and ages and breeds from all over the world. So pretty much every situation or every type of horse that you can imagine has been in my stable at one time or another, or has been in my hands at one time or another. And the basic thing is that every horse can develop a management system. And I would say the biggest difference between what I set out to do and what the TOT method is about is a lot of other training methods that I've experienced and tried to learn from myself is very much about how to teach the people to control their horse. And TOT method is very much about how to teach your horse to control himself. So you're able to have the knowledge to empower your horse rather than you are given the power to control your horse. And I must say the thing that I get most excited about is the videos that we see, and you can see on our very large archive that we develop from our live Q&As of all our members, the kind of questions that they're setting in. But it's quite remarkable, Connie, what the people our members are actually able to do with their horses in a short time, whether they be professionals that want to compete at a high level, or whether it be someone that wants to hack out and has a wild horse that's of age and has been naughty for a long, long time, and they've been able to turn them around themselves and have a lot of joy with their horses.
Yes, definitely.
Situations.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And I also actually had that experience myself yesterday. I was telling Tristan that right before we went live, my horse has been in rehab for several months, and I was allowed to ride him again. But you can probably imagine that he has a lot of energy and also some tension. But by going through the pattern, he was so relaxed, and it also gave me confidence, because that's also something that's really important. It doesn't only just give your horse confidence, but it also gives you as a rider confidence that you feel, okay, my horse knows what he has to do. He's relaxed, confident, and that I also know that if he gets tense, I know what to do to get him in a better position, in a better posture. So that also gives you a better feeling as well. Also, a welcome to Mika, who just joined us. And I also see some members in the comments, which is really great. Also, if I see some people have module 1, someone has module 2, and they're doing really well. So that's great. If for those members, if you want to get like the 2nd or 3rd module and you would want to use the payment plan, you can just send over an email. We can work that out for you. Let me see. Do you also train people who perform other disciplines other than dressage? Is a question.
Yeah, so through the time, I've trained, I think, just about every discipline I can think of, from race horses to polo horses, jumping, eventing, driving, reining, vaulting, reining, cutting horses, working cow horse, endurance horses. I've had pretty much every horse you can imagine, and there was a purpose of mine to be able to work with as many different breeds as I possibly could, to be able to skill myself up, to educate myself in how different breeds are learning, what is the process of the way their body works, what is their body telling them, no matter what the breed, if it's an Icelandic horse or if it's a Belgian of 190 centimeters, whatever it might be. I try to educate myself as much as possible in learning how each individual horses are and learning the biomechanics of how a horse operates and how his body makes him feel. And also the important thing is to be able to have good horsemanship, and also for me to be able to bridge the gap between horsemanship and sport, whether it be dressage, jumping, eventing, reining, vaulting, whatever it might be. It was very much my goal as a dressage rider in sport to be able to build that bridge and make a training program that was purposeful for creating a horse both for pleasure but also for high performance. And that's where the knowledge really comes from, in teaching a horse to have management over himself, so that the horse has a good management program. He's in control of his own physical and mental soundness, which means it doesn't matter what his purpose is, the horse is very much a part of his self-development. And that makes a big difference between people learning to control their horses and horses that are empowering themselves and their owners, no matter what the discipline.
All right, I'm also getting some questions. Oh, this is interesting. A question from Ekaterina. I think my problem is quite unique, though. My horse has problems with donkeys, and also some new members coming in. Mariah, and Crystal. Welcome.
Welcome.
But donkeys, Tristan. Actually, I think we have members with problems with donkeys.
Yes, I haven't had it so much here in Europe, but I had quite a number of horses afraid of donkeys, or horses that are afraid of sheep, horses that are afraid of cows, horses that are afraid of camels, horses are afraid of goats, horses afraid of rabbits, horses afraid of mice in their own stable. Specifically, I had a lot of horses that were afraid of donkeys in the Western disciplines, also riders that were stable together, whether it be dressage, jumping, eventing riders in Australia that were stable together with Western riders. Quite often you'll have Western riders, either mainly cutting horse guys, that are having turnback horses where they're using mules and donkeys, and quite often the donkeys can be just in general, whether it be in the riding, in the exercise, or if they've been in a herd with a donkey. If you know the temperament of donkeys, I'm very good friends with a man in Australia who's a professional at training donkeys and mules, and it takes a very special person to be able to get a mule or a donkey to do something willingly. They're a very strong, powerful animal, very determined, very stubborn. They have their own mindset about what they will do and what they won't. If you get a mule or a donkey to think that what you're asking them is a very good idea and they feel empowered by their job, they will go longer and further than any four-legged animal you will ever find. They are very sturdy. But horses can be, of course, very intimidated by them because of their character and their characteristics, and especially a horse that's been set free and had to share a field or a space with a donkey or a mule. They definitely end up being the top dogs. But of course, it's very much about the horses being able to be in control of their own physical state, so that they're not thinking about the thing in the environment, whether that be a donkey or a tractor or a pot plant. It's very much about them learning to manage and control themselves. When they learn to control themselves, they control the situation. So I've experienced lots of different types of animals and horses that are nervous with lots of different animals. So you can find all those answers.
So I have a question here. How would TOT help a horse who has become numb? I was training with a 4-year-old who has absolutely no response to me whatsoever. Not easy to explain so shortly. So
it works the same in our first groundwork patterns. It's very much tailored to each individual horse. Of course, the patterns of relaxation are for horses that are have a high level of sensitivity and nervousness. It's about self-management. For a horse, of course, that is not so sensitive, it's giving him an awareness of how his body can empower him to feel like an athlete. A horse that is lazy and doesn't want to go is often a horse that's been made to go a lot and thinks it's not a good idea. A horse that is a little bit stiff and has a bit of tightness in the body, and his body is telling him that it's not a nice feeling to want to go. He rather feels like he wants to be on the couch rather than wanting to be motivated. So through the first groundwork patterns, the horses get very flexible and they get motivated through knowing what it is they have to do, the meaning of the aids. There's also then a big part about the order in which you ask something and the length of time that you ask something for a horse that is not naturally motivated or has a lot of energy or expression. When you start to ask in this way, the horse feels again not that he's being controlled, but that he's in control of himself. As the horse makes the transition in his body to feel more like an athlete and less like a couch potato, also his mindset starts to change. So it's very much tailored to each individual horse, whether you have a horse that's highly motivated, whether you have a horse that's extremely lazy, one that's dominant and aggressive, one that's afraid and scared. It doesn't really matter what type of horse you have. In the end, the horses want to be happy and they want to be comfortable. And in the end, if we can show them the way of how to do that, they will choose that over all the negative behavior, of course, that we don't want.
And the name is Storm Text. I'm not really sure what the name is, but he also said, just want to mention that I've had quite a lot of success with duty with a number of horses and had great results, which is of course awesome. Let's see what questions I also have. Oh yeah, a question from Renske. How does it work with gaited horses? Because they're somewhat different in movement.
Yeah, so I've worked also with a lot of gaited horses of all kinds, from Icelandic horses to Tennessee walking horses to trotters to American trotters to hackneys to carriage horses. And the basics are the same. What you're trying to achieve is a connection in the horse's body, so that the horse is finding the perfect rhythm, the perfect tempo, which gets them into the perfect balance. And I learned really a lot from a very good friend of mine that was a world champion with Icelandic horses, both in the foregate and also in the pace. I also worked a lot with trotting and harness horses, and in Australia we also have paces. So that's not trotting, but pacing, so that the legs are going together on each side, a bit like a train. But the concept stays the same. When a horse has a good understanding of the awareness of his body, and you get the body in connection and get him in balance, his natural gaits and movement will increase. The quality and the stability, and of course the expression and the way that horse feels in a certain gait also improves. So I don't work specifically with gaited horses in the online training, but if people are requesting it, we can definitely add a video. I find it very interesting with gaited horses because some of the gaited horses have gaits that are hidden. I've worked with horses that we didn't think had a tilt, or only had a tilt and we didn't think had a canter, or a horse that could only pace or free leg. And you find all kinds of interesting things with gaited horse when they develop a really good connection in their body and a level of confidence and stability that makes them want to be expressive. I find it really exciting to work with those types of horses.
All right. I'm looking through the questions. A question from Louisa. If your horse has stifle problems, I think it's stifle, can you still do the patterns?
Yeah, so the first module, the first pattern actually on the online training, this is the first exercise, is now used by a lot of vets, especially in the US. I've worked with a lot of vets from both in Europe and Australia and also America. They're using it, one, for diagnosis, so to be able to feel what the capacity of the horse is, where the difficulties lie. And then they're also using it for rehabilitation. I'm also finding out a lot of dressage horses that have problems in the stifle. For those that don't know what the word stifle is, it's the knee behind, that have problems in the stifle, that have problems also in the SI, the sacroiliac area, on the croup, on the top of the rump of the horse. This shows up in the exercises. When you start the first exercises of these release points, teaching your horse how to release tension in his body, and the horse learns to really let go, and you start these patterns with a horse that is totally relaxed and supple in the body, the areas that the horses may be protecting sometimes with tension are revealed. So, and then what happens is your horse is able to let go in a way that they get good functionality, they get a good pattern in their body to be able to move in a way that's healthy for their body. And for sure, there are some horses that maybe have difficulties, which they have some maybe capsulitis or a real inflammation in the stifle, where they at that point need some veterinary assistance as well. But I've had horses with string hold, with shivers, with locking patella, you know, like severe stifle problems, not inflammation or soreness or weakness, but real, you think neurological issues, and they improve with the patterns. And this is, again, very much about, for these types of horses, building new pathways from the brain to the part of the body, and get that part of the body to move in a way in the right order, create a good pattern that gives them stability, strength, confidence, awareness of how they're moving. Often horses are moving by habit and not by awareness. And then that creates compensation patterns, which causes uncomfortable and eventually causes lameness. So very much this is a pattern for also sorting out horses' health and well-being, and that they are able to progress in a way of rehabilitation if they have problems in any parts of their body.
So we have more questions, but first, welcome to Leila, Tia, I hope I pronounced it right, and Emily. I have a question from Centauro. She says, it's an interesting question, actually. If they control themselves and the situation, how does this affect the ranking between horse and rider? If the horse is in control of himself, what makes them still willing to do what we ask? I'm totally convinced with the method, though, so don't get me wrong.
So it's a really interesting question. And what it is that from the beginning, you are becoming the mentor. You are becoming the person that gives them the sound advice. So you're no longer mummy. You're not the dictator. You become the mentor. So the mentor is somebody that teaches you the most about yourself. And so when you have an extremely good mentor that gives you a really good feeling in your body, you want to follow that person around everywhere. You can't wait until he tells you the next thing. You are empowered in yourself by what he's telling you. A villain will take that power and squash the person that gave it to him. Luckily, horses are not like people. There are no real villains in the equine world. They are not in the stable plotting up, now I feel powerful, I'm going to take over the world. So it doesn't really work like that, luckily. And what happens is, it's more the self-management for me, of course, also continue to look for guidance in the work, because they are getting joy from feeling things like accomplishment, self-generated learning abilities. meaning that you ask something, they perform something, they get a reward. They start to have the self-generated learning abilities, which is they start to look for the next place in which they can get the release, get the reward, feel the empowerment of their body. And so through that process, they're looking for your guidance. The self-management part comes more in the hours that the horse is not with you. So for instance, if you have a horse that is noise sensitive, and for all the hours he's in the paddock, the field, or the stable, he hears a noise and he's in the tension gym, like the muscles are going every time he hears something. He's not managing himself in the time that he's away from you. So what then happens is every time you get him out, you think, oh my God, why is he so bloody stiff today? It's because he spent 23 hours in the tension gym when he was not with you. And then you have to be technically good at riding to make him somewhat supple again. And this is also what changes the horse's posture. And, you know, we often look at horses and think, is it his conformation that makes him look like that? Is it his riding that looks like that? Now, of course, the structure of a horse and the conformation is going to determine a certain part of how he looks. But it's also the pattern that he's naturally in. If he walks in a certain way, if he carries himself in a certain way, if he holds a certain tension in his body, if he has compensation patterns, if he's having a pattern of tension, flight, fright, for all the hours he's not with you, the 1 hour we are working with him is not going to change how he looks, how he feels about himself. So it's very much this self-management system when he's away from you, the 23 hours he's not with you, and that you become the mentor so that every time you turn up at the stable, he's shouting at the door, he's here, wanting to come out of the stable and work with you.
All right. First off, welcome to Wendy, Heather, and Tina. I have a interesting question, and it also reminds me a bit of TFT Live in the UK with a horse that was noise sensitive. So this is a question from Eden, and she says, I use earplugs with my extremely reactive mare. Do I use them in the beginning of the program and then stop, or not use them at all? She's also a head shaker.
I tend to not use them because I want a real feel of how the horse is. Of course, you're not training in an environment where, you know, I haven't come across a horse in which I couldn't start the training just how they are in the halter, in a normal arena where you don't have the football club next door or the husband with the chainsaw on the roof of the indoor. In a normal situation, I don't try to muffle the horse from the real experience. I want the horse to be able to tell me honestly how they are, and that I can begin to teach them how to manage themselves from that position. So what makes a very big difference is taking the edge off is this first exercise we do where the horse is relieved of all the other jobs except one. And that's to keep the distance, the awareness of the distance between me and them as we walk. So they're relieved of all the other things they think they need to be thinking about, like where is that small sound coming from? Can I expect there to be a sound in 5 minutes that I have to jump from? So you relieve them of those things. The next thing is, of course, we are going into letting them find these release points. So they're releasing any tension, pressure physically in the body that makes them possibly be half alert, half in tension. They hear a little noise, they're in full intention, and then you get the explosion. We're getting them to a point where they really open up their body, relax themselves, and then you can begin with the patterns and the shapes, and then eventually get to the tools in which we are teaching them the concept of how to manage themselves to the pressures in the environment. Movement, touch, sound, and approach are the things that we are teaching them. But I would take, if you're in a normal environment, get a real reading from your horse, take the earplugs out.
So welcome to Anik, and a question from Louisa. Do you use treats as rewards too, or just the quid?
Most of the time I just use the quid in the basic exercises, and it's purely because at the moment my horses perform the right thing. I want them really to focus and feel how it is in their body. I want their body to tell them what it's like when they perform the right thing. And at the moment that they do the right thing, they've say, for instance, for the very first time, they've been on the circle and they've turned the hind leg and made a really beautiful transition and stood relaxed at the perfect distance. Their body relaxes, and at that moment I say, here, you want a treat? It's immediately their focus on what they've just done is gone by executing the movement. Oh, there's some cookies there. So what we want to do is really get the good connection to their body and not let them be distracted by the bribe or the reward of food. That doesn't mean that I don't use treats. I will often use treats most of the time when I want the horse to pause. So in a situation where the horse is not naturally going to pause or needs more motivation to make the connection. So the pause meaning maybe I'm teaching a horse to sit and his natural flow in the way he would get up would be front legs up and then he's getting up. And so I want to pause that moment, pushing the front legs up, treat. Oh, the focus then is broken, which is what we want to do. So I tend to use the treat as a breaking of focus rather than a reward. And then the horse is actually then in the moment of realizing, oh, I'm in this position. Oh, it's not so bad. I often use the contact of things when I'm working on my stretching wall at home. In the beginning, I want the horses to feel that, because I can't make a big contrast, I can't build a contrast between this is work, this is what this feels like in your body, this is rest, this is where I want you to find where to be. Say, for instance, I'm teaching a horse to find a position of comfort in a pressure zone, like on plastic or between umbrellas or under the streamers, whatever it might be. I can build a contrast. I can work the horse, and then when they approach, they learn the posture to approach something in a confident way. They learn how to show up to something, an area of pressure. I can then take the pressure off and let them feel it, and I don't need to treat them at that moment. But for instance, working on the stretching wall, I'm not working them. I'm bringing them to the stretching wall. I'm asking them to put a foot up. When they offer something, and then I'm looking for the pause, the foot is up, it stays up. They're realizing it's up. They have to relax with the leg up on the wall to be able to let the muscles function and relax. It's then I'm giving the treats for the pause. I don't give treats when I get on, for instance. It becomes a bribe. They end up having it as a trick. They're distracted. Therefore, they stand still. They're not in control of themselves and presenting you the saddle because they want to be ridden is why they stand still. So there is room for it, but it's not necessarily for me a reward because I want them to get the reward from feeling in control of their own body, which is more powerful than a treat. I don't know many treats that taste so good that you want to do the things that I want you to do.
So I have a question from Adrienne, and she says, I am getting a foal in October. How soon should I start this method?
So really good question. For the foals that we have born at home, I start them 2 days old. If a foal is old enough to stand, he's old enough to learn, the sooner you can give him the knowledge of his own body and his own awareness of how he should move in an optimal way to feel balance and get confidence, the better. We've often had horses together, some embryo foals that are out of the same mare by the same father, looking identical conformation. We've done the exercises with one and not with the other. The one foal that had the exercises, the one foal that didn't have the exercises developed in a normal way and was a really good and talented horse. The horse that had the exercises was already after a week much more coordinated, only having 2 or 3 sessions in the beginning. So this gave them the awareness of how to balance, where to put the feet to be able to take a step forward, back, left, and right. The foal that had the training was never unbalanced when running. The horse was the foal that had the training was also able to walk up and drink from mum without bumping the head in the flank and taking a few steps to find the position to drink. And what happened then was, as they developed and got older, the natural posture of the horse that didn't have the training developed an underneck. The horse that did have the training didn't develop the underneck. So it was giving the horses an awareness from a very young age of what a posture for carrying is. And of course, that posture for carrying in the beginning is of themselves. And of course, in the end, the posture for carrying is to be able to carry us as a rider. So if you can teach them in the beginning the right posture for carrying, stability, confidence from the start, you are not leaving them to their own devices to develop a posture and a position and a balance and a confidence all on their own. You're not telling them a lie for the first 3 years of their life where you just let them be a horse. That's also good, but you can also equip them with tools that are going to help them later on in life. It's no good telling them a lie for the first 3 years of their life, dragging them in as 2.5, 3-year-olds and say, actually, all this practice you've been doing at developing your natural flight instinct and your natural skills of being a horse in the wild is actually none of them you will need. You're actually born into a human world and you need to be able to have the farrier trim your feet, go in a trailer, have a vet treat you, have a saddle, have a bridle, have a rider, and their world gets turned upside down. So the sooner you can start to inform them of what it is they should know, the better they are.
All right. Well, we're getting also some questions about demos and clinics. Louisa wants to know when we're coming to the Southwest UK. Well, we're discussing it, and it's probably going to be October, right? So I think we'll be going to south of the UK, center, and north. And Julia wants to know, any chance you want to come by one day to sunny Tenerife? I'm not sure about that one, but
that sounds interesting.
Yeah, sounds good, especially with the weather now.
Are there more horses than just yours?
I'm not sure, but she also has a question. She says, "How would you start riding a horse the first day? The first days, once he moves the magic to the block, and I can lean and sit on him. What would be the first baby steps from there? Especially, I don't have any help." I think she means a horse that. I'm guessing a young horse that has to learn more about the saddle and the riding and stuff like that.
So the important thing in the beginning, when I'm starting the horses, is of course that they know the pattern very well on the ground with the saddle and without the saddle, also with the bridle, and that I'm able then to be in a position of riding the horses without sitting on them. So what I'm doing is I'm walking next to the horses and I have both reins and I'm pressing them where my leg goes when I ride, and I want to have the ability to go on a circle, walk and trot, to go straight, and the horses have the feeling that I can run next to them, that they are having impulsion, they are moving forward, and I'm not leaving them, I'm going with them, and that they're happy for me to go with them while they're moving. So that then, of course, the very small step to riding is only to swing my leg over, and I'm asking exactly the same things, but then I'm just asking from the position of the saddle. When I am doing my tools, I'm making sure that the horse is knowing how to manage himself from movement, touch, sound, and approach from both sides, and from both sides from each side, meaning that if I'm on the left and he sees something over from the right, that he's able to manage that. And I'm then teaching the horses to understand the position of weight. So often I'm doing that sometimes without a saddle on, so I can be on them, over them, around them, that they are understanding the meaning of weight, and that they create stability in that. They feel stability and balance and that they are confident with weight on the back and when the weight is shifting, and not that they get insecure the moment you're on the back and your weight shifts and they don't know what to do. Of course, the drawing to the block, meaning they're learning to stand still, they're having you over them, they can see you right eye, left eye, they're allowing you to lean on them. They know the controls from the ground to make a transition in trot, to slow down, to turn the hind leg, to be able to take the bend, the safety position. I then go on and off them at the block without going anywhere, and that they understand that I'm reaching for the stirrup, I'm rubbing them on each side, I'm preparing them. Before I do something, I prepare them for that step before I do it. So I'm explaining to them before doing to them. And so I explain the preparation of an exercise before I do an exercise. So before I swing my leg over, I'm swinging my arm over, these sorts of things. When I get on the horse the first time, I'm actually just going through the very first pattern that I do on the groundwork in the halter, which I then do in the saddle and with the saddle and the bridle. So there's no real surprises. Anything I ask them from the back, I've already asked them, and I know that they're secure. I know that they know what it is they have to do, and I'm not asking them any questions that they possibly could get the wrong answer to when I'm sitting on their back.
All right. We have some more questions. Eden also wants to know if we're going to Canada. I think that will be actually next year, right? We're thinking of going to the US, and Canada would be near Toronto, I think 2020.
Yeah.
I have a question from Malin, and she asks, is there a different way to deal with an older horse that is spooky? Are the habits harder to change at that point?
It purely depends on the horse. For me, age is no limit. Of course, what you sometimes get is an older horse physically is more set in a certain way. They have muscle development in a certain way. Their natural pattern in the way they move in their body is sometimes further developed. So the sense of what their body is telling them is a little bit stronger and a little bit more set in the ways. But what I've also found is that horses are only using the flight instinct because they have not another tool or another option that is better. And so what can then often happen is sometimes with the older horses, you give them a new tool that doesn't involve fear. You give him a management skill, a new tool in his toolbox, in which empowers him to feel like he's in control of himself in that situation. And sometimes those older horses can take responsibility of that, take full ownership over that new tool and think, my God, why the hell didn't someone tell me this years ago? I wouldn't have to use flight every time I get in a situation where I'm unsure. So you finally give him the knowledge of knowing what to do, and sometimes they are so happy with that, and they're so sort of relieved that now they know what to do, that they change immediately, and you never see them spooking again. So don't let age fool you in thinking just because your horse is like that, he will always be like that. You can always change your horse's story if you have the right knowledge.
Yes, I think that's a very important message, because often we think that a horse is just a certain way and it can't be changed. I always used to think that until I had met you. There's some funny things.
I'm going to send you a message now, Connie. That I surprised myself with that, and I'm going to record it. That you can change your horse's story if you have the right knowledge. I just want to remember that one for later.
That's good. I also want you to remember something that's been written on the chat. And it says, you are a horseman god, Tristan, and your method is the Bible. You are just awesome.
No problems. I'll give you €10 when we get offline. Thank you very much.
No, actually, everybody can see it has been written. I'm not making it up. I also have a question. I'm not really sure about this one. Marie asked, "Are you coming to Denmark and give lessons at any time?" Actually, you were in Denmark last weekend.
Yes, I was visiting a friend, not on horse business, but I don't have any plans in the near future. Of course, I lived in Denmark for quite a long time before coming to the Netherlands, and I have a lot of great friends there in Denmark. But I'm sure we have on the list, Connie, for TRT Live at one point to be visiting Denmark. But my schedule at the moment doesn't allow me to have regular trips for lessons in Denmark anymore. But those members that are signed up, of course, from Denmark on the online training, they are able to send the videos through the online training and also stay in contact with being able to see when the training days are on. But in the schedule at the moment, there's no regular trips to Denmark.
Well, we are planning on going to Sweden, so maybe that's an option. And of course, we're going to Germany. But maybe Denmark for next year. Eden says Toronto would be awesome. Julia says, please also come to Austria. I have a question here from Monica. She asked, do you always tie your horse with that kind of head collar? Isn't it dangerous if he or she panics? And welcome to Katie and Kelly. I just saw them signing up.
So it's a good question. I'm actually only using the rope halter for a number of reasons. Of course, in the training, that it's really giving the feeling of that they really know where the direction is coming from. So it's very precise in that when I'm asking to go left, it's really giving this precise direction of what they should follow, different to a webbing halter that sort of will put pressure everywhere. The second thing is when I give the release, it's really light, so they barely feel that the halter is on. And my rope is connected directly to the halter, so I don't have a clip, so I don't have a diffused line between me and the horse. The connection that's coming from my hand is going directly to the horse. The long lead, of course, is for obvious reasons to get a second chance if the horse is trying to leave the situation. I'm using this halter also in the trailer. I have a special way of tying the horses up so that they never hang themselves. You can also see that in the trailer loading demonstration. I never let my horses wear a halter in the field for obvious reasons. No halter. I would never also let my horses wear a webbing halter in the field or the paddock. So my halter, I'm always with my horse basically when I have the halter on. Tying up of the horses, I'm teaching them how to release pressure from the halter, so that the horses are never in a situation where they feel trapped or they feel like they need to pull away. I've seen horses have a lot of accidents in the past actually by being tied up even onto a snap that can break and hasn't broken quick enough, and the horses are giving some kind of force backwards and then it lets go and then the horses let go. I've used ring ties in the past where the long lead is able to gently slide, so if you have a horse with a real pulling back problem, they're able to find out through the tension not really releasing, but it's also not holding there, that they learn really to go towards the pressure if you have a horse with an actual pulling back problem. But I tend to be able to teach them through the exercises, through the modules and the online training, how the horses need to follow pressure and yield from pressure, both in the body and from the head. I'm also teaching my horses often to lead from a rope around the belly, around the flank, around the legs, around the ear, so that they really know how to release pressure. They never get into a situation where they should be pulling against the halters. So you'll see through the training how I work with the horses with the halter, but it's a very important thing that we have clear communication. The horses are not put in a situation where they feel restrained and the need to pull back.
All right. Thank you all for the very lovely comments in the chat. Kathleen wants to know if the online training is also available in Dutch. Well, we have Dutch subtitles, and part of the website is written in Dutch. Also, we have
Titeling.
on the titling. Yes, Tristan is working on his Dutch as well. But we also have downloads and summaries, and the transcripts are translated as well. Renske wants to know, are there videos about lunching in the method?
That's a good question. I don't lunge my horses ever, per se. Of course, the modules of the groundwork show a horse going on a circle. So the only thing in the groundwork that depicts lunging is that the horse is on a circle, walk, trot, and canter. I'm in the middle of the circle, and there's a rope between me and the horse. Everything else is different, meaning that lunging for me is about chasing the horse forward. And in the groundwork, I'm actually riding them from the ground. So I'm using all the aids that I am using when I'm riding, except I'm just using them from the ground. So all my groundwork is to be able to explain to the horse how he needs to be in the posture and to be able to make good transitions, be in control of his body. So he's on the circle, they're going walk, trot, and canter, but it directly relates to the riding. So that then when you get on the horse can make really the connection between what he's learned on the ground is the same as what he's expected or asked of in the riding. I do also work my horses a bit on the long lines, so double lunging. And I think we have a bonus video on that, do we, Connie? Are you there, Connie?
Sorry, I have the microphone, but I switched it on. I switched it off. Actually, we don't have a bonus on it.
Okay, so something we have to create. I'm using the double lunge quite a bit, also for the young horses to learn to follow the track. I'm also doing approach and touch, approach and pass, behind and chase exercises on the long lines. I'm also, of course, you'll see from my social media channels, I'm doing my piaffe in hand, often on the long line. Also, piaffe passage transition, sometimes extended trot. I am also teaching my own horses at home half passes, pirouettes, flying changes, also sometimes from the long lines or the double lunge. So it's something I use, but for the progression in the beginning from the basic foundation right up until riding, I'm never lunging my horses. So I tend to give them exercise in the riding or on the ground without restriction. So I'm not teaching them a frame, to be in a frame in front from a side rein or a draw rein or a slough too for the Dutchies. Horses are really learning a posture for carrying in their own body that's created from their own pattern. It's not something that I'm making from the reins. So I tend to not do a lot of lunging in the traditional sense.
So I have a question here from Petra. It's not on the YouTube chat, but in the normal chat. And also, actually, I was talking to someone about you earlier today, and she was telling me about a story. She was a groom for an international dressage rider, and it was at an international competition. And you were there, and they had to do the I'm not sure how you call it, the inspection for the vet, the trotter. Yeah, and the horse was all over the place, and they had to hold him on both sides. And you helped them. So maybe you can tell them a little bit about that, what happened there, and what you did. But also, Petra's question is, which relates, I think, what if a horse doesn't respect the knot and halter at all? Usually, I always lead with a chain over nose when leading normal head collar.
So, who did you say you talked to, Connie? I can't remember this. Who was the
Yeah, it was in Qatar.
It was in Qatar.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try
Do
to
you
think.
remember?
Yeah, I'll try to think. I'll give the explanation for the chains first, and
With
then.
the chestnut? Dutch? Thriller
Oh,
was the
yes,
Dutch.
I know. Yeah. So, chains for me is a way of managing the horse. It's a restraint, basically. When you can't manage someone, you put them in restraints. You put handcuffs on them, a chain between their feet. And for me, it's the same with the horses. Traditionally, we stand in the beginning next to the horse. For me, it's the worst possible place. So in the start, we change this position. We also change the idea of the horse, of him feeling that you have to manage him and that he's actually starting to be in control of himself. So you don't need ammunition for this. You don't need to be able to control the horse, because from the beginning you're learning to teach the horse how to control himself. So it's not your job anymore to manage him, to manage the situation, to stop the horse from doing the wrong thing. You're teaching him to be able to manage himself, to manage the situation. And of course, the chain is just a restraint. Quite often you get horses that are feeling restrained, feeling managed, feeling controlled, and then the behavior, of course, gets worse. It's like anything. If you don't solve the cause of the problem, you're just trying to manage the symptoms, then the symptoms progressively often get worse. Or if you're a real dictator and you get an honest slave, the horse will then stop misbehaving because he's afraid to go against the ammunition. So the knots on the halter is actually on my halter. We normally have a crossover knot on traditional rope halters. My rope halter is a half knot, which I developed myself through trying to make the rope halter softer. I'm not having the double crossover knots, which puts pressure on the nasal cavity, which a lot of other traditional Western halters will have. So my halter's a half knot on the nose. So all it's actually doing is splitting the nose band piece into a cheek piece and a chin piece. And so in the beginning, I'm really giving them the idea of how to manage their own self and the distance between me and them. And in that way, I'm only ever telling them where they shouldn't be. I never tell them where they should be. So when you get into just telling the horses where not to be, then you don't have the job of telling them where to be anymore. So then there's no need for the severity of a chain or a lead bit to tell them where not to be. Of course, there's moments where horses have professionally learnt to run away, and we also have techniques for that, to be able to not get in a situation where the horse is running off on you. The story is, yeah, we were at a competition in Qatar, that's in the Middle East. It's an extremely nice international competition, but like most internationals, you have to do a trot up, an inspection, and it can be quite an exciting event sometimes. There's sometimes a lot of focus on the dressage horses being a performance animal, only with a rider on, and those horses with the big engines and the high levels of horsepower and the low levels of self-management and the high levels of containment from the riders, and sometimes the rider and the trainer and the groom, having a chain on 3 sides of the horse to get him to the trot up, of course is humorous to me, because it can be solved quite easily. And this was in this case, and it's not the first and the only time it's happened. But of course, the horse decides it's not going to be restrained anymore. And then actually, if you have 10 men, you can't hold a horse down that doesn't want to be restrained anymore. So I had actually a really sweet groom that had to walk the horse not only was the trot up the problem, but also, of course, walking your horse in between the riding is really, of course, crucial for the horses to be able to get out of the stable and walk occasionally, and not that they're only out of the stable when the rider is sitting on board. So actually, just in a few minutes, we taught the horse. I had a rope halter with me, of course, for my own horses, and we took the leather halter off with the chain, and I began by just taking him out of the box and teaching him self-management, where he could put himself to be comfortable, and I just told him where not to be, and he found out where he should be. He found a relaxed position, and then in a few minutes he could walk on a long rein, a long rope on the end of the halter, like an old school horse. And of course, the horse was highly intelligent, which was why he wasn't able to be restrained. But at the same time, because he was highly intelligent, he learnt the new management system really fast. So often then what happens is the horse makes you look like a wizard, a horse that was not able to be controlled for many years, all of a sudden in a few minutes is walking on the end of the rope like an old school horse. And of course, that contrast in images that people see is really big, but it's actually that the horse is really intelligent, and he's now not having to rely on his resistance against the restraint, but he's now feeling like he can control the situation and manage himself, in which he feels then more comfortable, and he of course chooses that rather than the fight. And so that was, again, a successful story through actually the very first exercise on the online training. So, and that's at a very high professional level. I mean, these are people that are riding international Grand Prix for many, many years and are high-level coaches of riders. And yeah, it's not that anybody goes out to do the wrong thing, but you learn from the people that taught you, and the people that teach you learn from the people that taught them. And unless somebody shows you a different way, you just keep doing what you're doing sometimes, but then you also keep getting what you're getting. So it's nice to spread the knowledge to everybody that is interested.
I think we'll go through the last question. I do want to mention that the price I listed is €24.95. When you're from the US, 21% tax will be deducted, and it is around $23 US dollars a month. In pounds, it's almost 18 pounds and almost 33 Australian dollars. So that might be helpful if you're wondering what it actually costs, because we listed it in euros. So, and also a big thank you for all the awesome comments and people replying and asking questions. It's really great. Last question is about stallions. She says, how about stallions? Would you handle it all the same way?
So that's a very good question. Depending on the stallion, of course. I'm working with a lot of breeding stallions that come into the normal management system of the human, meaning they've got lots of chains on and they're being managed. And some people have a very big job to manage them. So in the beginning, I'm sometimes not doing the first exercises close to them. So my first pattern where I'm really close to them, because sometimes it's too inviting for them to climb on top of you or have you for lunch, feeling like maybe your clothes or your ear tastes really well. So I'm starting then with exercises more at a distance, but the same principles are applying. The only thing with the stallions is you have to be more precise, of course, about your execution and the way you ask, because stallions have a very good idea in the concept of what is fair and what is not. And if they have the feeling that you are challenging their space or you're ordering them to be somewhere, they will, of course, challenge that. So, of course, I address it in the same way with all horses. I'm not ordering any horses around or feeling that I'm challenging their space or dominating them or showing them who's boss or trying to become the leader. I'm trying to prove my worth through being the good mentor and giving them some sound advice. But I do make some adjustments to the exercises. I'm working a lot of the stallions, especially the breeding stallions, from a distance, and those that have been managed for a certain length of time because they've built resistance against the handler. And they automatically, when you are sometimes close to them, feel like they're being dominated. So, of course, their natural instinct, the brain between their legs, says they want to be the top dog. And sometimes when you get in close, it's too inviting for them to use their natural instinct of making sure that you don't come above them in the suppression game. But the same principles apply, and it works. Of course, the training works for those with bulls as the ones without.
Awesome. Well, Tristan, thank you so much to everybody listening. And I will be sending a link of the replay. Of course, I will check if it all went okay with the replay, but I think it did, despite the technical issue we had. So thank you all. And yeah, I think we should do this more often. Perhaps also about other topics like trailer loading, general spookiness and stuff like that. So thank you all, and hope to see you next time. Bye-bye. Nice evening.
Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye-bye.